all of this information still developing, but over a matter of a few hours, an estimated 150 rockets have been fired from Lebanon at northern Israel. The Israel Defense Forces urging residents in the north to stay near their bomb shelters. And this really just sort of showing the escalation that is taking place between Israel and Hezbollah. All, of course, after we saw those explosions earlier on this week. That's what you're seeing on the screen right there. Those were pager explosions for pagers that belong to Hezbollah terrorists, as well as explosions of walkie-talkies as well. A lot to discuss here, so I do want to bring in Javed Ali, an associate professor of practice here at the University of Michigan. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help kind of break this down.
Of course, Josh, always nice to be with you.
All right, so first off, I do want to ask you overall your thoughts here as you hear 150 rockets there fired by Hezbollah, presumably over there in Lebanon at northern Israel. I mean, that is a lot. It does show what appears to be an escalation.
So, Josh, if these reports are true to your viewers and listeners, it does sound like a lot, but Hezbollah has also been trading rocket fire with Israel on the northern border of Israel for almost a year now. So unfortunately, this is not new in the pattern of activity. The volume might be a little more significant, but even if it's 150, I mean, that is just scratching the surface of the inventory of these types of weapons that Hezbollah has. And I would have to believe that based on what Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah said yesterday in the previous clip, went over some of those remarks, that this is just sending a message as well. But I don't believe that this is the retaliation that he warned about. This is just an opening salvo, so to speak. But Hezbollah has far, far more capability to threaten Israel and launch these kind of attacks, but much bigger in scale and scope. So there's probably a lot going into this moment right now, but I don't think it's the retaliation that Nasrallah sort of suggested yesterday.
And what you're looking at on your screen right now is a live look over the Israel-Lebanon border. It's a shot that we've shown a lot over the past several months as the situation has progressed between Israel and Hezbollah. I did want to ask you, you talked a little bit about that. I call it retaliation, but in reality, Israel has not claimed responsibility for the pager explosions or the walkie-talkie explosions, but Hezbollah has said they know Israel is responsible. What do we expect that any kind of quote-unquote retaliation could look like? Do we have any sort of idea?
Well, even though Israel has not officially claimed responsibility, pretty much everybody outside of the Israeli government has assumed that Israel is responsible, or stated Israel has been responsible. And the fact that they did not use military weapons the way that they've been fighting the war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, or even the operations they've conducted against Hezbollah, suggests that this was probably an intelligence-driven operation. Mossad would be sort of considered a covert operation or covert activity. So that's why Nasrallah continues to say that we're going to hold Israel responsible for this. And then getting into what could be next, as I mentioned, Hezbollah possesses a vast inventory of rockets, cruise missiles, drones, short-range ballistic missiles, tens of thousands of fighters, a global terrorist attack capability. So you pool all of that together, and then I would have to imagine over the past few days, a menu of options has been presented to Nasrallah, and he's probably been in consultation with his key interlocutors in Tehran because of the relationship between Iran and Hezbollah. And then now it's a question of what will they do, when will they do it, what will it look like, and will it be viewed as proportional or escalatory against Israel? And these are all questions nobody really has the answer to right now.
I want to talk a little bit more about the situation in Gaza as we do get closer and closer to 1 year since the attack by Hamas on Israel that led to the Gaza war here. We do know that Israel has reportedly offered safe passage for Yahya Sinwar, as well as really just removing the troops, the fighting there in the Gaza Strip, in exchange for the release of all 101 remaining hostages. Is that something that Hamas is likely to accept?
Well, if these reports are true about the current deal that's on the table, that would suggest that either from the decision or the calculation from Prime Minister Netanyahu and the War Cabinet and the IDF that they've achieved most of their objectives against Hamas. They've degraded its military infrastructure. They've killed thousands of its fighters. They've eliminated a lot of its senior leadership, although Yahya Sinwar is still alive. Now, guaranteeing his safe passage suggests that they will try to honor that and remove the troops. Not clear, though, what happens next in terms of rebuilding Gaza or who will govern it. And then, another important issue, the return of the hostages. So if that's the deal on the table, will Hamas accept it? Unclear. And as we've talked about in previous interviews, Yahya Sinwar is very different from all the other political heads of Hamas. I mean, he's a incredibly ruthless guy, very tough-minded. He knows Israel has been targeting him for years. He was in prison for an Israeli jail for 20 years. So in his mind, he may not accept this deal. And it's very difficult to know, just based on who he is and his history and personality, it may not be the deal that he accepts. And in the meantime, I think Israel is trying to end the war against Hamas and reallocate resources to potentially launch another war against Hezbollah. So I think that's part of the calculation too for a ceasefire.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how it's looking at this point as we see those things start to escalate. I do want to pop this image right up on your screen here, as we know that Israel police and the Shin Bet have said that they foiled an assassination attempt on Netanyahu, Gallant, and other high-ranking Israeli officials. We brought this as breaking news yesterday as the details started to come in, but there is still a lot to figure out. And by the way, that's the suspect there on your screen. But do we know how far along that plot was? If it was in the planning stages, if it was about to be carried out, or is all of that kind of unknown?
So interesting development, and just based on the reporting that I've seen over the past 24 hours, it suggests that um, it was more at the conceptual stage. That's probably the best way I could put it. It doesn't seem that that individual that you've shown was actually operational in the sense of either himself or anyone else he was going to try to sort of get into this plot, whether he had to pay them, recruit them, were ready to actually launch some kind of lethal attack against all the individuals you suggested. But regardless of whether it's conceptual versus operational, again, I think it was more conceptual, shows you that Iran over the past year will think about these kind of operations and use a really interesting set of assets or proxies or just pay people who they believe have the access to these kind of targets, and then sort of hide their hand to the extent possible. And this is how Iran traditionally operates in this world of clandestine intelligence and operations. They've also, if your listeners or viewers remember, over the past couple of years, they've launched similar kind of plots against President Trump, Mike Pompeo, John Bolton here in the United States, using sort of a similar pattern of activity. So this is the kind of operation we've seen Iran try time and time again when they're aiming at a very senior political figure, either here in the United States or perhaps overseas in Israel.
My last question for you here, I want to talk a little bit about the Iron Dome and the aerial defense system, because as we continue to talk about Hamas and Hezbollah, do they have the power to, let's say, overwhelm that Iron Dome as they are firing, in Hezbollah's case, apparently 150 rockets in a matter of hours?
So the Iron Dome capability was put to the test, if folks remember, in April when Iran launched a salvo of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones at Israel based on sort of escalating tension then. And not only was Iron Dome activated, but there was a large coalition air presence that was also involved in shooting down those weapons. So, but that was 300. And again, it took a lot of capability to successfully intercept all of those weapons that were headed towards Israel, launched from Iran. Now, with respect to Hezbollah, as we talked about earlier, they have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of weapons, not maybe at the ballistic missile level that Iran has, but again, more on the short range side, but weapons that could hit 100, 200 miles into Israel. So if they choose to really activate a significant part of that capability, I'm not sure Iron Dome and the Arrow systems and the Patriot batteries and coalition aircraft and IDF aircraft, depending on the scale, it would be very, very difficult. I mean, it's obviously hard to say what it would look like, but Hezbollah has a lot of capability to potentially stress the system.
And Hezbollah overall does have more, I guess, materials, more ammo, that sort of thing than Hamas overall, right?
I mean, Hezbollah has transformed from the small clandestine terrorist organization that it was in the 1980s and was still incredibly destructive and caused a lot of damage. And pre 9/11 and before the rise of Al Qaeda in the 1990s, Hezbollah had killed more Americans than any other terrorist group. So this is a group that has the blood of a lot of Americans on its hands. But again, in that transition from being a small clandestine terrorist group, over the past probably 20 years, they have become, for the most part, a professional army within Lebanon, even though it's not the army of the Lebanese government. And again, nobody really knows how many men are under arms, Hezbollah, but at least in the 20 to 40,000 range who are sort of regular, and then probably another 20 to 40 to 50,000 who would be mobilized in a crisis or an emergency, or if Israel invades southern Lebanon. So this is quantitatively and qualitatively a much different threat to Israel than Hamas is. And as I also mentioned, has a global attack capability that could launch a terrorist attack worldwide with very little notice as well. So we're heading into a very serious moment here, because if this war really gets underway between Israel and Hezbollah, not only will it have regional implications, but it could have global implications as well.
All right, Javed Ali, as always, a true expert. We appreciate you being here. Anything you want to add before I let you go?
No, again, Josh, I just think we're heading into a difficult moment. Whether on the Israel side and Hezbollah side, sort of cooler heads prevail and things don't escalate even beyond what we apparently is going on today. But if they do and things really ratchet up, then I think it's the fight would look even worse than the Israel-Hamas war, and that that's not a pleasant thing to think about. So it'll be very delicate kind of moment for the next few days.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to see how this all plays out. Thank you again for being here with us today. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
And I do want to take you back out live to this image that we have showing the Israel-Lebanon border, as right now we are learning from the Israel Defense Forces that approximately 150 rockets have been fired from Lebanon over at northern Israel. People in that area being told to stay near their bomb shelters if they did not evacuate. They are getting those alerts on their phone. They are being urged by the government to pay attention to those alerts. 150 rockets more are possible here. As we get more details from the Israel Defense Forces and that region in general, we will bring you updates right here on Live Now from Fox.